Ahoj, já vás vítám u druhého dílu videa na téma se a si. This is the second part of the video about verbs with se and si. In the first part, we looked at the first three categories. The first category was the obligatory se and si, verbs that do not exist without se or si, such as ptát se or pamatovat si. The second category was when se and si make a distinction when you use them with certain verbs. For example, mít, to wash, versus mít si and mít se, when it specifies the meaning. And the third category is when se and si changes the meaning even more. For example, the word ztratit and ztratit se, to lose something or get lost. And now we are going to have a look at three other categories. And this is category number 4. We are going to be talking about reciprocity, when se or si can mean each other with certain verbs. I wrote 4 examples of verbs which you can use with se, but there are, again, many more. Znát, vidět, mít rád, nesnášet. These verbs can be used without se, and when you add se, the reflexive part, it means each other. Let's have a look at the first example. Znát, to know something or someone. When you say známe se, it means we know each other. You could separate the information and say já znám tebe, ty znáš mě, známe se. I know you and you know me, we know each other. So there is this reciprocity, se meaning each other. However, if you say znám se, it would mean I know myself. There would be no reciprocity because the verb is in the first person singular. We're only talking about one person. I know myself. So se often means to myself or myself, such as myju se. Remember, I wash myself. And if you say myjeme se, it could be also we wash each other. If you don't have the context, you don't know exactly do we wash one another or are there more people who wash themselves. So, znám se is clear because I'm just talking about myself and I'm saying, oh, I know myself, I know what I'm gonna do, znám se. And then when you say známe se, it's more likely that you are saying we know each other. But it could also mean, yeah, we know, each of us know ourselves. So again, you need more context. Next one is vidět or uvidět. Again, these verbs can also be in different form, such as the perfective or imperfective or different tense. Vidět and uvidět. I give you an example with uvidět, the perfective form. Uvidíme se zítra. We will see each other tomorrow when you say goodbye. Uvidíme se zítra, čau. And again, uvidíme se zítra. Uvidím tebe, ty uvidíš mě. Reciprocity. Mít rád, to like or love. Petr a Jana se mají rádi. Petr and Jana like each other or love each other. Mají se rádi. Nesnášet, to hate. Moje kočka a můj pes se nesnáší. My cat and my dog hate each other. Notice that this verb is in negative form, so it actually corresponds to cannot stand grammatically. Snášet is to stand or bear something or someone. Nesnášet, cannot stand. So they don't stand each other. They cannot stand each other. And again, as I mentioned, all these verbs can be used by themselves without the se. Here the se is not obligatory. You can say moje kočka nesnáší mého psa. We just describe this one direction. My cat cannot stand my dog. But if you put the dog into the equation and my dog cannot stand the cat either, then they don't stand each other. So se here works as each other. The same for si, although there are fewer examples for verbs that can be used with si and it means also each other. Typical example would be tykat and vykat. Tykat means to be on first name basis, to be informal with one another. These two verbs are actually quite important in the Czech language Because when you don't know somebody and that person is either your superior or he or she are older than you should start by treating them formally, which is vidět. And then, if you feel comfortable enough asking if you should be treating yourself informally, you would ask, můžeme si tykat? Can we be on first name basis? Or can we use the ty form, jak se máš versus jak se máte? And again, this means can we treat each other informally, each other. Můžeme si tykat. I could say můžu ti tykat, and it would be directed just in this way. Můžu ti tykat, but notice the verb můžu ti tykat. Můžeme si tykat. The same with vykat. Usually you wouldn't ask můžeme si vykat because it's obvious, or you wouldn't usually go from informal to formal. And I wrote an example. Se šéfem si vykáme. My boss and I are treating each other formally. Vy. We're using the vy form. Okay, let's see another category. The fifth category is only about the use of se. Okay, the si is not possible here, and it's the use for passive voice. For those of you who don't know what a passive voice means, I'm going to give you a brief explanation. It's when an object becomes a subject. And we usually use it when the action, the verb, is more important than the one who performs this action, than the subject. I'll give you an example. Vařím polévku. I'm cooking a soup. So the subject of this sentence is já. I am cooking the soup. Já vařím and I am cooking soup, polévku. This is an object, the direct object, and it is an accusative case. I am cooking soup. Soup is my object. However, in Czech we can also say the soup is being cooked. So we would say polévka se vaří. By adding se, we state that the soup is being cooked. Technically, we could say it means the soup is cooking itself. Yes. This construct is very, very common in the Czech language, this kind of passive voice. It's called the reflexive passive voice, and it can appear in any tense. This is the present tense. The soup is being cooked, and you can see how we switch the object for subject. Polévku is now the main actor of the sentence. Polévka se vaří. The soup is being cooked. The soup cooks itself. Let's see another example with a different tense. The following example is in past tense. Ztratil jsem peněženku. I lost my wallet, or I lost a wallet. And I can say ztratila se mi peněženka. My wallet was lost. My wallet got lost. If I want to emphasize it was my wallet, I could even say mi. Ztratila se mi peněženka. Traditional past tense plus se. And you can see peněženku, the object, changed, and it is a subject now. And it is totally fine to have it at the end of the sentence because it's a new piece of information. As I mentioned, in the passive voice, the subject of the active voice might not be as important. So when I say ztratil jsem peněženku, okay, it is important for me to say I lost it. And in this sentence, ztratila se mi peněženka, it means my wallet is lost. It's not important that I lost it, it's lost. Also, in this sentence, if you don't say mi and it's out of context, it would just mean a wallet was lost. Ztratila se peněženka. You could write this on a post. Please call this number. A wallet was lost. A wallet is missing. Same here. Hledám svého psa, or hledám psa. I'm looking for my dog. And if you want to write an ad, a dog is missing, a dog is being looked for. Hledá se pes. Dog is missing, but literally a dog or the dog is being looked for. And in this sentence, you cannot really say hledá se mi pes. So hledá se pes is simply a dog is missing and somebody is looking for it. And now let's try to transform this sentence into passive voice together. Dělníci opravují dům. The workers are repairing the house. We are speaking about the workers, but what we really want to say is that the house is being repaired. That's the important thing. Here it doesn't change the form. The subject would be the same, dům. The verb is opravovat. And how do you say it repairs or the house repairs? It would be opravuje. But because the house doesn't repair something, it is being repaired, we have to add the se part. Dům se opravuje. Se and si are one of those words that cannot start a sentence, and when there is something before the verb, they have to go before the verb. So that's why we switch. We say hledá se pes, but dům se opravuje. If you say opravuje se dům, dům is a new piece of information. It means a house is being repaired. But if you want to say the house that I already spoke about, or my house is being repaired, then it's pointless to have it at the end. Actually, it would be confusing. We start with the old piece of information, usually. Dům se opravuje. And opravuje is the new piece of information. In case you were wondering why I didn't write it in the same order as with the dog. Okay, and the last example. Zjistili jsme, že. We found out that something. Zjistili jsme, že to nebylo dobré řešení. We found out it was not a good solution. And we would say it was found out. So we would actually say past tense, but for it, which would be zjistilo se. Zjistilo se, že to není dobré řešení. Somebody found out, it's not important who. They found out the solution was not good. For example, you can say vědělo se, že to není pravda. It was known, we knew, everybody knew. Vědělo se. So remember, this is a very common use, se also for reflexive passive voice. And our last category concerns only the use of si, which is for personal emphasis, and it is completely optional. Here it's when it gets even more interesting, because this is something very specific for native Czechs, and it might not be as easy to get if you don't live in the Czech Republic or you haven't heard enough Czech, but hopefully you will get the idea from these examples. All of these examples where I use si are actually optional. If you leave it out, it is completely correct, grammatically correct. Myslím si, že to není pravda. I think it's not true. Myslím si. I am emphasizing that this is my opinion. I think for myself. It would be completely correct without si. Myslím, že to není pravda, but I can emphasize that it is really just my opinion. Keep in mind that myslím si, when it's followed by a preposition like myslet si o tom, it has to have si. Myslet si o tom něco. To have an opinion about something. This is a different case, because here si is obligatory. It's a part of a phrase. To have an opinion about something. Co si o tom myslíš? What do you think about this? What's your opinion about this? But when I don't put any preposition after that, I can choose whether I want to use si with myslím or not. So this would concern the phrases myslet si že, to think that. Next one. Seděl na gauči a četl si. Or četl. Seděl na gauči a četl si means he was sitting on the sofa reading, and he was reading. Si here again means that it was his activity. He was doing this by himself. He was not reading out loud. It's usually some enjoyable activity when we add si. Četl si. Četla jsem si. If we leave out si, it's also fine, but it looks like it would be missing something almost. Četl si. It's more natural. So it is natural to use si in this case because he read for himself. It was his enjoyable personal time. If we wanted to say he was sitting on the sofa and reading a story to somebody else, then we cannot say četl si pohádku dceři. He was reading a story to his daughter. We have to leave out si because it would be no longer only for himself. Here we could say to himself, just like here. I think to myself, and he read to himself. Next one. Vždycky si zpívá ve sprše. He or she always sings to themselves in the shower. Again, this is not in public, it's not a concert, we're just singing to ourselves. Zpívám si. I sing to myself. Jdu si uvařit kafe. Chceš taky? I'm going to make myself a coffee. Cook. We say cook coffee. Do you want some too? So I'm planning on making myself a cup of coffee. So it is natural to say jdu si uvařit kafe. And then I offer, do you also want one? If I say jdu uvařit kafe, chceš taky, it's fine, but it would sound like I'm gonna make coffee maybe for everybody. Once I put this, jdu si uvařit kafe, it is clear that it's just for me. So you can think about all kinds of verbs that would be describing an activity that we can do by ourselves or with other people. And many times you can use si to emphasize that we do it for ourselves. This is the end of this topic. We've talked about 6 categories. My idea was to help you understand how important se and si are and that there is no universal translation for them. So just keep in mind that there are some verbs that are obligatory. Those are important to be learned. Musíte se je naučit. And then we have all these nuances like this, where si is optional and you have to develop a feeling for it. That means every time you come across a sentence that has si and se, you can maybe think about why it is there and then start using it for yourself. So this is all for this topic. Keep learning Czech and find lots of ways to express yourself. Mějte se hezky, užijte si to a pamatujte si to. Ahoj!